like to call the February meeting, no, it's the March meeting. I've been messing this up all day. The March meeting of the Hudson River Black River Regulating District to order. Roll call, Mr. Farrar.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Finkel.
Here.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
David Bergstress. Here. Anthony Netto.
Here.
Jeffrey Rosenthal is excused. Michael Clark.
Here.
Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Fulton.
Here.
John Hodgson.
Here.
Richard Ferraro. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I think we also got notice of a new board member being appointed who will be at the next meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we received notice late yesterday that Robert Moore of Old Forge has been appointed to the board. He's from the Black River area, of course. I have spoken to him last night, and he does plan to attend the next meeting. I will get together with him sometime in between now and the next meeting and give him an overview and a briefing of everything that's on our plate at this point. And we'll take it from there.
Very good. I need a motion to adopt the revised meeting agenda.
What revisions to the meeting agenda were made?
Oh, okay.
It's already
We've added it, so it's
Yeah, it was already on.
basically the discussion and I'm looking for it.
That was already on there previously.
we posted that.
all right.
Put out there. So
Okay.
what you see is
and the hiring resolutions on here.
those are.
Okay, so a motion to adopt the agenda then.
Simple. I'll make that motion.
Mr. Netto. Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, looking out on the empty room, I guess we have no guests introduced and no public comment. So I need approval of the January 7th, 2015 organizational and regular board minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes.
Any discussion or corrections?
I'll second. Mr. Bergstress.
No discussion or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Report of the Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You will find on page 45 of the board package my report, my activities for the last couple of months. I did want to note that we need a resolution to incorporate language within the regulating district's vehicle use policy to ensure compliance with the state-owned fleet policy update involving the use of personally owned vehicles. The state operations director issued a memo on January 20th of this year that has establishes additional requirements for the use of personally owned vehicles. That applies to all state agencies and public authorities, including us. This new language needs to be incorporated into our policy, vehicle use policy, which exists and we abide by, whereby requires that fleet vehicles must be available to any employee that expects to drive their personal vehicle over 15,000 miles a year on business. That is so far above and beyond what we do that it won't really be, should never be an issue for us, and yet we need to incorporate this into our vehicle use policy. And I don't know if we have, but
Yeah, we have.
do we have a proposed resolution?
Yes.
Page 47.
Page 47, following on 47, there's modifications to the policy, which the modifications themselves show up on page 50 and 56, I think. Nope. 50 and 59.
Wherever there's red or
Right.
gray.
The-
underlined.
They now define a personally owned vehicle usage as use of a non-state vehicle while in the course of state employment. And then the policy,
Should we started scheduling these meetings in Pennsylvania?
Uh,
Maybe get a car.
yeah, I think what it would take is you'd have to be an agency that has multiple locations that somebody travels between every day. And if they're going to use, there's,
Personal vehicle.
there was a huge change in the vehicle use policy statewide that said nobody gets assigned a personal, basically nobody gets assigned a vehicle for their own use.
And that was 5.5 years ago.
And I think that worked and everything, everybody understood how that was supposed to happen. My guess is that somebody figured out a way to drive their own personal vehicle between prisons or between toll booths or between whatever.
At 50-something cents per mile.
57 and a half.
And they said, wait a minute, if you've got that situation, you have to assign them a state vehicle. And while it doesn't really affect us, our policy should be modified to reflect it. Right.
So we need a motion to modify our policy to the state vehicle use policy.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. No.
Second?
I'll second. Well, Dave's got it.
Mr. Burks.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On to your number B.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have some personnel actions to discuss with the board. Back in November or December, I don't remember which, I apologize, discussion with the board regarding filling a vacant slot for a field assistant. As everyone remembers, that field assistant title is duty stations assigned to the Sacandaga Field Office, performs much of the field activity inspections and permit processing and many other tasks as assigned around Great Sacandaga Lake primarily. That position was vacated when due to a promotion. As a result, we advertised back in late January, mid-January, for letters of interest and resumes. We received 33. Out of those 33, we interviewed 12 candidates. And then, after evaluating those 12, conducted a second interview of 5 candidates. And based on that second interview and discussions with staff, and I've come to you today with a recommendation to hire one candidate for that title. That is Danielle Thorne. The entry-level salary for that position is detailed in the resume, and that's $36,821. That's per the current CSEA collective bargaining agreement and this year's salary schedule, and that is the hiring rate. The only other pertinent thing, I believe that this employment would be start date would be March 26th of this month. Well, obviously this month. I ask that the board confirm this with my resolution that I presented, the draft.
Very good. I just want to comment that on the second round of interviews, Mr. Hayes and myself were there, and I was very, very impressed with the level of candidates we had for this job. It was not an easy decision. And and I agree with the choice of Danielle. She's very personable and seems very, which this job requires a lot of being, working with our people on the lake, so. So we need a motion to authorize you to hire
Like, make that motion.
Danielle.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
And Albert and myself. Albert made the motion, I second.
Yep, got it.
Mr. Hayes.
Hayes and Bergstresser and a vote.
We haven't done it yet. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We got another one right
Okay, we do. Mr. Chairman, there's the second resolution I have distributed today, draft resolution, is a resolution proposal to create a senior staff title of compliance officer for the regulating district. This the need for this title stems largely, although not wholly, from the ever-increasing workload, burdensome workload that is a result of the MWBE requirements that we need to comply with. As you'll notice, it's not the title of the what I'm asking the board to consider is not MWBE compliance officer, because there are many other reporting requirements that are currently handled by the chief fiscal officer, and while he's doing 20 other things. And I would recommend that these ancillary duties be placed also on the desk of the compliance officer, if you wish to go that way. And I perhaps, Rick, would you like to explain some of the other?
The other areas are the large chunk of compliance needs are revolve around the public authorities law. The thing is massive. It generally requires either some kind of report and or policy, and then it changes. Over the years, I think, based on the fact that I've been doing the job, I've done the best job I can to try to stay on top of it. I think that job needs somebody to focus on it, not just to stay on top of it best they can. And many, if not all, of the other agencies have a similar position. My initial reaction to the need for compliance was also centered around the ongoing and increasing effort for complying with the women and just the MWBE program. That in and of itself is massive enough. And as I thought about it, I said, these are all connected. So when we go out there and we're doing a procurement, a lot of the stuff that we do that's discretionary, and the board has discretionary authority under finance law, under public authority law, and under the executive law 15A, right? Mm-hmm. Right, executive law. And again, to be completely assured that we are on top of all that, I firmly believe needs a person to make that happen. So,
And as a matter, to add to what Rick is saying, in the preparation of the goal plan for our MWBE goals for this current year, which are now at 30% instead of 20%, the one thing that was startling when you read it is that they are now looking for, I say they, the folks in state government that administer that plan are looking for responsible charge, a person that heads up that effort to meet the goal plan and all the requirements. We have not had that to date. What we currently have is Stephanie Rozicki, an engineering assistant, where a component of her duties, a significant component of the duties, has been to deal with the minority and women business enterprise effort on the regulating district, but also the other many and varied engineering assistant duties, which the need for which ebb and flow over time, and when you add the additional reporting and additional responsibility that's being placed upon us, and indeed every agency and entity of the state, it seems to be we need to have one person doing it, and if we've got one person doing it, it makes sense. It seems to make sense to me that that person also assume the responsibilities for all other compliance and reporting in one office and on one desk. Someone that's got their arms around everything.
It's fine. What's your present?
It's a,
Engineering system.
Engineering system, so.
you need to replace her, is that correct?
I want to reserve judgment on that, but I need to have certainly a more detailed discussion, and I haven't had it yet with the chief engineer and the operations engineer as to the need. But my guess would be, yeah, we ought to consider it.
Some of
Have we budgeted for an extra person?
have we?
I know the last time
We
I
are-
agreed, isn't it?
I'm sorry. I just
We
wanted
both
to.
asked the same question.
In the draft budget, there is an item for that person.
Okay.
But
Because I know we-
again, and then there's not an item for the engineering assistant. So it's not that that's a wash because the salaries will be.
When we
different.
elevated Stephanie, it was with the idea that you needed the help in the engineering side.
Well, I was just going to point out one thing.
Still do.
Some of the engineering, actually, not all of it, but as I understand it, the emergency action plan, for example, that she assists Mike Mosier with and the engineering staff would fall under this compliance thing. So there are pieces of what she's currently doing to support, but it's not everything. I just wanted to point that out. So.
Well, I know it's becoming a huge issue, this compliance, corporate compliance. When I
There's
started-
whole organizations built around it, not just a person.
That's correct. Yeah, it's getting more and more important. So, I mean, it's something you gotta do if we're gonna function.
So then, should we build that into the budget? Another position?
Well, because right now, I believe the current pass of the draft has headcount static, meaning it would not include the refilling of an engineering assistant.
That's right.
And I
However,
think Mr. Burris is asking, should that be added?
well, we've got between now and June to determine how we want to do that. I strongly believe this is the first step.
I think we should at least,
I think we should address it.
I think we should try to add the other person. I think we're gonna need it.
I could certainly include a line item.
As you said,
In the-
if we don't spend it,
We are.
Right. And again, we're still trying to, on the engineering assistant would be on the Hudson River side, again, which is the budget where we're trying to stay within the 2 million and change because,
I mean, ultimately the decision lies here. We need somebody.
It's still in the back of my mind how many we
We
look
ought
at.
to,
and we're not, again, we have some, that's why the unappropriated surplus. Right now, I've been somewhat conservative, particularly on the black side, because I'm not sure of a couple things yet, but there may be room to put that in, and it's not going to
Okay.
really change anything. So
the annual
I could do
salary-
that, and we could have a pass it.
Is that a change from her current salary?
Yes, it is. That is a change from the current salary of the engineering assistant.
Now, where's this one from?
That's the lowest level senior staff position, and
And
in
it's
terms of
lower
salary
than,
level.
it's, again, apples and oranges, but if you look at people in similar positions throughout the state, the folks that I'm on a call every week or every month, depending on which call it is, that are carrying the same title, whether it be MWBE compliance, diversity officer, I mean, there's all different ways that they build and form these organizations. I mean, most of those folks are making well north of that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I thought it was
What's the change from, just so
I don't.
61 to
Okay.
74.
I know when I said on the Board of Family Counseling Center, we had to go to a corporate compliance officer and she's overwhelmed. There's always stuff to do, whether it's, the personnel, policies, reimbursement policies, there's all things that come under the corporate compliance. I was amazed. So certainly, it's something we probably need.
We need a motion?
We need a motion to, do we need a motion to just create the position or just?
Well, the resolution, I believe,
Would create the position of compliance officer and authorize that such position be filled by Stephanie Rozicki.
Good, say all that.
What he said, I'll make that motion.
At an annual salary of $74,259.
I'll make the motion as stated in the post.
Everybody clear on that? We have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Anything else for the executive director?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all that I have. And
Any
the
questions?
board has
for-
something for me.
Any questions for Mike? Okay, no contracts to discuss. We'll go to committee reports. Finance Committee. You got a report out there.
Okay, yeah, to report out the motion, or resolution and motion that was advanced earlier at the Finance Committee meeting and recommend to the full board the adoption of the resolution approving the budget and financial plan as prepared pursuant to Section 2801 of the Public Authorities Law.
page 7.
70?
Page 7 on the board packet, so it's back in the finance committee resolution.
So with that, I would recommend to a full board its adoption.
You have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'll make that.
Mr. Hayes?
What are we adopting? Just
You're-
the actual budget or?
No,
No,
this
draft?
is,
Draft.
this has nothing to do with the budget directly. This is a public authority required finance plan, which all it technically is information about your next, your just closed budget and audited, your current cycle, and going out those number of years.
Right.
And this,
But that information is based on the draft budget. I just wanted, so the board knew where the information was.
Reflected on page 6 of the.
Correct.
this would be a resolution to authorize the submission of that draft 216 budget and financial plan to
It's not a draft.
to Paris, the public authority reporting.
Right. But it's not a draft. I don't want to, the budget's a draft. A lot of the information is a draft. The public authority report is just what it is. It's the budget financial report. It is what it is.
All right, thanks.
We hope it's as accurate as it can be. If it isn't, doesn't matter. The state isn't, nobody is calculating anything off that. It just shows them that we're thinking about what's
So we
going
need a
on.
resolution approving the financial plan.
So Mr. Hayes
So we have Mr. Hayes,
made the motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Mr. Bergstresser.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other questions for finance?
I have none.
General counsel, Mr. Leslie.
It has been quiet on the litigation front. We are awaiting the outcome of the competing dispositive dispositive motions in the NIMO federal court challenge and in the slip and fall case for against the district from Captain Naughty's patron. I've begun to prepare materials for the Sansevera appeal, which should be coming to you in May for the board's a board hearing and resolution. I attended the training provided by the Office of the Prevention of Domestic Violence because I'm our liaison for that. Liaison, I can't pronounce that word. I also attended a meeting with all agency counsel at the Capitol where they were pretty specific about some of the things they wanted us to do. And I've been involved with a DEC enforcement case up at Stillwater, which I think you guys are aware of. DEC does not like the fact that the Thompsons utilize a ferry to go down the length of the reservoir, and specifically don't like that they moor that ferry or dock that ferry at either end of the reservoir. There's some question as to whether it's a commercial enterprise or a municipal enterprise, and the Thompsons basically have asked us to consider whether we would allow the ferry to be docked at the Stillwater facilities. We have a dock that's apparently deep enough for their ferry, so we're investigating that. We haven't, not prepared to make a recommendation to the board at this point whether to accept or reject that proposal. Anyway, that is the council's report in a nutshell. Certainly available for any questions.
What's the liability if we were to allow it? I mean, is there a liability for the agency?
I suspect there would be, but I'm sure that that could be mitigated.
Okay.
You know, if we need insurance, we'd get insurance. If they need to pay for it, we'd make them pay for it.
Fair enough.
I mean, they wouldn't be.
We may already be
conducting
covered for it.
As I understand it, they wouldn't, if that were to happen, they wouldn't be conducting onloading and offloading it.
Right.
At our facility. It's more of a place to, it's a parking spot kind of thing. Apparently, one of the issues, I don't mean to jump in, but
No, that's fine.
it's has been occupying space at the state ramp at Stillwater Reservoir.
Right. The
For a
latest
long time.
latest iteration is that the Thompsons believe DEC would like them to return the ferry to the other end of the reservoir each night, notwithstanding that there are times that the ferry would deliver people late at night to our end of the reservoir and then return early the next morning to take people back down in the morning. So in those instances, they want a place to basically park the ferry that's not at the DEC dock because DEC doesn't want it there. So we have certainly more discussion to take place and more thought. Just wanted to let you know what's going on.
Any other questions for Mr. Lessman? Thank you. Spokane.
Thank you. Our
This one?
fiscal
Oh, sorry,
officer.
Sorry.
You
Excuse
can,
me.
you can go after me if you want.
I had a.
I'll be brief.
You don't have to be.
My somewhat voluminous report, because it represents 2 fiscal months this time. Page 61 to 138. So the board has January and February financials. Nothing new cash flow on page, let me just point out one thing on page 84, which is the cash flow report that will take us through, excuse me, 84. Would be cash flow page, I have it. Page 105. I know it's small, but in April, you'll see that that's where we have placed the state share of $1 million. And that state share is subject to passage of the state budget. This is the first year we've been waiting for that amount, that if we don't receive it, we will have a cash shortfall the following month. So I know we pointed that out, I think, 2 months ago, but nothing has really changed in that situation because everything else we do is fairly static. There's no additional revenue coming in.
And we don't really have a sense as whether or not the budget's, how it's gonna come in.
Well, no,
Timing? I mean-
I believe, I don't have the sense that it's not gonna be on time and we'll be okay. That's where I'm sitting, but if that's not the case, we'll probably have to do something fairly quickly.
Such as?
Not pay some bills.
Possible, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of,
From what short
there's already
period of
some
time.
bills we're
Still.
holding to keep us where we're at, so,
Okay.
again, we'll play it by ear, we'll just. But I think at the April meeting, we'll certainly.
Well,
have-
the last-
It'll be 2 weeks, right? The April meeting is the.
Yeah.
What's the cash shortfall up there?
The cash flow would have, again, based on whether we hold some bills or not, we probably could get through April.
Okay.
May would be the issue.
Now, in the last couple of years, we've received that $1 million state share right around the beginning of May, right?
No, earlier.
Okay, last
Yes.
year, I agree,
Last
last
year
year
we
was
got it,
earlier.
yeah,
The
right.
year before,
Only, we didn't get it earlier the year before because it was an issue in how they were gonna get it to us.
Okay.
So they could have got it to
All
us
right,
as
yes.
early. So,
Okay,
so I think in April, we'll know a lot more, and we'll still have
sure will.
time, I believe, if we believe there's gonna be some
All right.
delay to do something.
It's now, it is a line item in the
Yeah,
proposed budget, which
Absolutely
is
right,
good.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's in the budget, there's no question that it's going to be there, it's just,
just a.
It's just a pass. We've been told that the budget needs to pass. So aside from that, there's, on network, we did complete 2 server installations, one in Mayfield, one in Watertown. So we now have new servers in those 2 operations. They're working very nicely, and another big IT thing behind us. So we are, from an IT standpoint, looking very good.
Where's the server and the Zach Dog, is it in the office in Mayfield? That's it.
In the basement,
And the
correct.
other one in Watertown's up in
Up in Adultsville, correct. Same servers, running the same software, connected to the same virtual private network that we've had. We have great support. Time Warner Business Glass was the best decision we ever made, because they manage everything, our Sonic walls, all 9 yards, so we're looking very good. I think that's all I have, and if the board has any other questions.
Do you have any
then
board
unless-
expenses?
Oh, there are board expenses, would be the last thing that we would.
I just wanted to put out a reminder that we're now, board members now need to submit their reimbursement requests. It's supposed to be within 30 days of when the expense was incurred.
Right, so you can be, you know, do it, and then 30 days later, you're good.
So if I sit down and fax you everything after the meeting.
It's a little bit more of a pain. The only, and it hasn't really been too much of an issue, except we did have a couple of instances where it was done just once a year. Then it gets to be a
Expense.
voluminous.
I don't tend to do it very often.
If you want to do it,
Myself a note so I get it done. Excuse me.
I mean, all you have to do is submit the one, the one,
well, the
the
expense.
summary sheet.
Right,
yeah.
the summary sheet.
We'll prepare the voucher.
We'll prepare the voucher.
All right. Okay.
So on,
Everybody on the board have that summary sheet? Or do we-
If not, we'll get it to you folks
If you would.
as soon as
I'll
possible.
send it out to everybody, just
Send it out to
whether you have it or
everybody,
not. It's
please.
it's an Excel spreadsheet and pretty straightforward.
Send the file, that's fine.
Sure.
Thank you.
Page 139 is expenses to be approved by the board, 139 and 140. For departing board member, Mr. Stover, and for Mr. Neto.
Need a motion to,
I'll make a motion.
second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed, I assume?
Mr. Neto abstain?
Can
Actually, no, I can't.
You have to vote.
Aye.
Sorry.
Anything else from Mr. Farrar?
I have
Thank you,
nothing.
sir, even though I tried to skip you. Now, the engineer's report.
Thank you. My report begins on page 141, and it summarizes and reflects another, probably contrary to general opinion, a dry month. Precipitation in the Hudson River area was only 70 to 80% of historic average, and as a result, our inflow at Great Sacandaga Lake and Indian Lake was 43 and 60% of historic average, respectively. And in the Black River area, we had 60 to 80% of historic average precip, with inflows to Stillwater Reservoir of only 37% of historic average. And our latest snow survey in the Hudson River area shows actually about 90% of historic average water content. And I believe in the Black River area, it's about historic or maybe slightly above historic. So, excuse me, while we've had significant, compared to historic average, significant depth of snow, and there hasn't been much water in that snow. And, you know, I think if you talk to the general public, most folks believe there's an excessive amount of water in the watershed, and at least,
People will be blown away with the numbers you just,
yeah, except that, you know, when you really measure it, and
yeah.
and certainly John might be able to expand on his staff going out and doing that field measurement, but yeah, it's showing that it's fairly dry, and right now it's below average in both the Hudson and in the Great Sacandaga Lake and Indian Lake watershed. So, despite that, and because you don't know what you're going to get in April and May, and because the rainfall that you could get in April and May significantly drives or necessitates the positioning of the reservoir. You know, we're basically where we would be historically for snowpack and anticipated rainfall. I think long-range forecasts reflect an equal chance of precipitation in April and May being above or below average. So it's a 50-50 chance, yeah, for what that's worth to start with, and it doesn't help when it reflects an equal chance of it being above or below. So, so that being the case, and as you can see in the graphs, we're pretty much where we would be under any other typical, you know, average year of snow and precipitation, and that is, you know, between our targets and our historic average curves, and certainly, you know, certainly prepared to receive the inflow once it comes, which may not be too far away. The warmer temperatures are starting to loosen up some of the snow,
Let's hope.
only slightly at this point. I'll take any questions if you have them, and
Got some
otherwise.
ice out there.
And there's ice. That may be more the significant problem in terms of flooding this spring, at least at this point, is the thickness of the ice in the rivers is pretty substantial. From my sources, the experts that monitor that kind of thing. And so, yeah, as that breaks up, that could cause some flooding issues. Not something that we can really have an effect on, other than if we were releasing, and we might not be releasing anything at all, but if we were, we could back off for a short period of time and try to affect a change. But yeah, that's usually completely out of our control. So.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fulton? Any?
I have none.
Thanks, Albert.
Hudson River Black River Administrator. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report starts on page 171. To date, we've got about 81% of the access permit renewals have been processed. And in both areas, needless to say, the staff there has been moving snow almost seems like every day. And when they're, let's see, in the Black River area, when the guys aren't moving snow or doing snow surveys, they've been busy at the house. We're actually remodeling a couple rooms in there, eliminating a wall from a bedroom to a living room, and we're going to make that our new boardroom or meeting area, if you will. And it's coming along nicely, and hopefully we'll have it ready for our board meeting that's coming up in that area. Let's see. Everything else is going smooth in both areas. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions for Mr. Hunter? No. Thank you. That brings us to number 10. Why don't you start that? Or no? Well, as you know, we've been looking to discuss the salary schedules of senior staff. The time's coming. Hopefully, when the budget is passed, we'll have our opportunity to do it.
State budget.
State budget, yes, state budget. It's something that we as a board are committed to doing and want to do. And we're just waiting for the opportunity to do it. I mean, I don't know how much more we can discuss at this point. Everybody's looking at me.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I can really say is that the senior staff has, aside from 2% last year, a 2% increase. Prior to that, it was 2008.
Yeah, no, I know that. I think we're very much aware of that, and really want to make the adjustments, and I think we will get to that point very soon. After we discuss it. We need a resolution for the next regular board meeting.
Yes.
Make a motion.
Mr. Burris.
I'll second that.
Watertown on April 15th. 14th, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Mr. Neno.
So I have to abstain.
But abstain.
No. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
Mr.
go for
Hayes.
it.
Mr. Burris.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.